your calls. Richmond, Virginia. Bill, independent. Go ahead, Bill.
Good morning. My question is regarding marijuana. And for years we've been told that marijuana is a gateway drug, but based on my experience, it seems to be a gateway drug to the black market. And seeing how marijuana is the most widely used by far of illegal drugs, my question is, and I'm interested in your thoughts on this, but if we legalized marijuana and that would cut down on people's access to the black market, do you think we might see fewer people using harder drugs like methamphetamine, cocaine, and heroin?
Let's hear from our guest.
You know, we've talked a lot about the legalization issue, and I recently gave a speech to the California police chiefs in which we laid out the administration's opposition to legalization. It's not something that's discussed. It's not something in anybody's vocabulary. And there are a host of reasons. One is it isn't going to save California's budget. The amount of money that would be collected would be, quite frankly, paltry compared to the amount of money that would be spent on social and criminal justice costs. For instance, alcohol is taxed, and yet the amount of money collected for alcohol taxes doesn't even begin to pay for the drunk driving arrests, the social and health care costs. So legalization doesn't seem to make a lot of sense from a whole variety of standpoints. And we go into that in detail. And in fact, that speech that I gave is on our website at ONDCP.
Next call, Johnstown, PA. Ben, Republican. Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, thanks for C-SPAN. I'm
Sure.
honored to be on. First I wanted to answer one of the previous callers' questions, and then I wanted to propose like my plan of what I would do and then get your opinion on it, if that's okay.
Go for it.
Yeah, so first, one of the callers said, where do you delineate? Why is pot illegal and oxycodone is not? And the answer is real simple. It's the law. It's the people's will, the Constitution of each state. So that's the answer to that question. And then as for my proposal of what I would do, and then I'd like your opinion on it at the end, but if I had your job, or if I was the president, I would probably stay out of it a little bit. I have bigger issues, and I'd probably cut budgets and funding to your department. But I would leave it up to the states as per their individual constitutions. If the state cannot agree, then put it on a ballot and let the people vote. But the bottom line is that all companies should have the right to deny employment on the basis of drug testing. That's their freedom. That's their liberty. If you want a state full of stone losers, then it's that state's liberty. But your economy may suffer as a result. If it was legalized in each state, I would tax it, levy it, regulate it, and enforce law all around it to develop income.
Several different points there. Anything you want to latch on
Well,
to?
I would tell you now that the states clearly have the right to, and they've developed a variety of laws regarding drugs. The state of Oregon, for instance, put pseudoephedrine as a prescription only, and they've seen a marked reduction in the amount of methamphetamine abuse because that is the precursor over-the-counter drugs for methamphetamine. Other states have developed ways of dealing with marijuana, with dealing with other drugs, but the federal government clearly has a role in this. 50 different types of drug laws, that's why there is a Federal Controlled Substances Act, but also the vast majority of treatment is funded by the federal government. So we have a real role in this. I'm fortunate because I got to spend almost my entire career at the local level, so it isn't, I was just kind of parachuted into Washington, but I still feel like a local.
Back to terminology, the term drug czar. We also read is something you're not too thrilled about. Tell us why.
Well, I think they put too many words in Director, Office of National Drug Control Policy. My wife, however, is quite fond of Tsarina, so we'll see.
Let's hear from Jacksonville, Florida now. It's John on the Democrats line. Hi, John.
Hi. I just don't see where you guys get the right to tell anybody what they can and cannot put into their bodies. I don't see it in the Constitution, and I think it's an affront to every individual. The last fellow who called with the state-by-state solution is the person who's made the most sense to me this morning. I rather liked your response to him. I don't believe the federal government has much of a role of paying for the treatment of marijuana users.
Caller, we got your point about the government's role. What about that public safety issue? That
drive into things like people do who drink. It affects people in a different way.
I don't think he heard my question, but go ahead and respond to his comments.
Well, you know, I think the federal government has a huge role in this. Public safety and is a deep concern of elected officials, and that's why they take it on in not just ways of criminal punishment, but they also take it on because they've seen the abuse and what can happen to communities, what can happen to neighborhoods. And I saw that as a police chief, what a drug house in a neighborhood can do, whether I was in Buffalo or whether I was in Seattle. So we can actually make a difference in the quality of life and improvement. And the answer isn't always just putting handcuffs on people or locking people up.
One last call, Wellsville, Ohio. It's Ernie on the independent line. Good morning, Ernie.
Good morning. The problem with our society today is the demand outweighs anything. And the worst problem is that the United States has caused most of this problem by lying to the American people. When I was in high school in the 1960s, if you smoke a joint, you're going to stick a needle in your arm and you're going to die, which was proven the biggest lie of all. And then you have your movies like Reefer Madness that the government made, and the government's the biggest problem with the drug war because they get billions and billions of dollars. And the drug war should be over. If they decriminalize it all, it'd all settle down and it'd all fade away.
Mr. Kurlikowski.
Well, you know, he's dating himself kind of around my age when he's talking about graduating from high school in the 60s. I don't think there is any question that the scare tactics, and it wasn't just scare tactics about particular types of drugs, that was not an effective message. We used to see programs called Scared Straight, where prisoners would tell kids, if you violate the law, this is what your life will become, etc. Kids today are pretty sophisticated, and they need a variety of messages. Those messages need to be truthful and to the point. And our media campaign that is actually funded by Congress and is well-tested and well-vetted can be very effective, and we know that. And it isn't based upon scare tactics. But I would clearly disagree with the caller when he talks about, you know, if we just decriminalized all drugs or even legalized all drugs, that everything would be better. You know, I was kind of taught early on that if I was told that one silver bullet would make everything better, I could be assured of one thing: that's probably incorrect.
Give us some more of the details as we wrap up on the strategy as it's released. In what form? How can people look at it? And then what happens to it?
Well, it'll be, it's in the past perhaps was not the most widely read document. I'm sure everyone at C-SPAN read it every day.
Sure.
But we actually think that this is a document that not only directs federal agencies about how their money is spent and what they do on the drug problem and coordinates it, but it's also an important document for state and locals because, quite frankly, it is their voice that is in this document. And just as importantly, as we talked about the global issue, and many of the callers have talked about what's going on around the world when it comes to drugs, because we're such a leader in areas of prevention, treatment, and quite frankly, enforcement, this National Drug Control Strategy can be a great piece of information for other governments as they develop their own comprehensive and balanced way of dealing with the drug problem.
Gil Kurlikowski is Director of the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy. Appreciate your time this morning.
Good. Thanks for having me.
And we'll look forward to the report and the strategy being announced soon, and we'll continue to tell you where you can read it. We will take another short time out, and then we'll